Right. Good morning, members and everybody else present. Can I welcome you to this meeting of the Development Management Review Committee? Prior to the commencement of the business, can I please remind all in attendance that the meeting is being recorded. Also, for all members to raise their blue virtual hand should you wish to speak. Also, should the meeting be ongoing at 11 AM, I would invite all present to join me in observing the 2-minute silence. If we go to the agenda, do we have any apologies or substitutes?
No apologies, convener.
Thank you. Declarations of interest? No declarations? Good. Right, can we therefore move to item 3, land at Barry Road, Westfield Street, Carnoustie. This is an application for a review of the decision taken by the Planning Authority in respect of the refusal of planning permission for the erection of 6 houses, landscaping and parking at Barry Road, Westfield, Carnoustie. Is the agent or applicant present?
Convener, the agent is present, Mr. Gray.
Thank you. We had the site visit on Monday. Do members require any further information? No. Right.
Sorry, convener. I think maybe Paul, the planning advisor, wishes to speak.
I just wonder, thank you, convener. I just wondered if it would be worthwhile just clarifying a couple of the questions that were raised on site prior to further discussion.
That would be a very good idea.
Okay, the first question was in relation to the remaining area of open space, which amounts to 15%. Having reviewed and what would be basically dealt with, how that would be dealt with in the future, having reviewed the report again, I just want to confirm that the applicant in their supporting statement clearly indicates that the remaining amenity open space area will be retained for public use, with it being maintained by a private factor. There was also a question in relation to the grey boxes on site. It would appear as though the vertical box, which is within the site to the north of the site, was a control box for the old bus shelter. The bus shelter was removed when the roundabout on Barry Road was put in. The other grey box on the roundabout at Barry Road, Westfield Place, haven't quite got to the bottom of what that might be, but it looks like it could well be related to the adjacent post box. But it's probably worth noting to members that that one is actually out with the application's red line area. Thank you.
Right. Prior to consideration, can I refer members to section 4 of the covering report on page 4, where we are advised that the applicant's agent has submitted new information which was not raised in the first instance to the Planning Authority when the application was determined. The reason for this new information is as detailed on page 111. Members are required to determine if the statutory requirements as detailed within section 4 have been met. Should we determine that the requirements have not been met, then we must not take those new matters into account. Comments, please, gentlemen.
I have no problem accepting the new comments.
Councillor Duff?
Yes, likewise.
And Councillor King? You're muted.
I have no problem either.
Thank you. So we shall accept them. Paul, your blue hand's still up. Right. In which case,
apologies.
Can we move to the consideration?
Convener, just before we move on, I think it's worthwhile just if we could clarify the reasons for accepting that information. There's the two parts A and B. The matter could not have been raised before the time, or that it not being raised before that time as a consequence of exceptional circumstances. I think members maybe need to just determine why they're accepting that new information.
Right. Well, the explanation is at the time of determination, the appellants were working closely with a registered social landlord who had given interest to provide 100% affordable housing for the appeal proposals. The RSL's letter of support accompanies this appeal. It is a material consideration that the RSL is interested to build the site. They can provide much needed affordable housing. It is explained in the grounds for review statement that planning policy supports affordable housing delivery, and we are accepting that reason, I believe. The members agree with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Great.
Satisfactory, Sarah?
Yes, that's fine. It's just for the reason for the minutes.
Yeah. Right. Let me just get back to my notes again. In which case we shall proceed to determine, can I go around my screen? Councillor Duff.
I think the site visit was actually quite useful because this wasn't one that I had particularly strong views about either way. I do note that there's a large number of objections from people in the vicinity. I guess the concerns I would have were that the amount of parking will be reduced if we de-adopt the parking spaces, and clearly that's quite a tight street for parking. And I also, I think, acknowledge the fact that that small area, although it's pretty unkempt, is at least some open space in that area, and building on it would obviously remove that. So I think on those two grounds, I'm happy to accept the original officer's decision and would reject the appeal.
Thank you. Councillor Miles.
Similar, the site visit was very helpful. The vertical box, if it can be removed, okay, it removes one obstruction, but the parking issue was a big one. The congestion that we'd created with an extra with extra houses there, combined with the existing parking, would create huge congestion. So I would have difficulty overturning the officer's decision on this one.
Thank you. And Councillor King.
Yeah, I think the officers have got this absolutely right. I was familiar with the site for quite a number of years. The question that came to my mind was, when Carnoustie Town Council built the adjacent local authority housing as was, why did they not just extend all over the site? And the obvious answer is this was required for public open space and parking. There's no change to that. So I'm quite happy with the officer's decision.
Right, thank you. And I also agree with members. I'm going through all the reasons. I agree with what you've put forward, and I also support the dismissal of the appeal, and therefore this appeal stands dismissed.
Convener, can I just confirm whether it's for any of the additional reasons or whether we are quite simply going with the reasons as detailed in the handling report for refusal?
Quite happy with
We
the
are.
handling report.
Okay, thank
We're
you.
going with the original report.
Okay,
Let me just, right.
thank you.
Okay, can we therefore move on? Get my paperwork up to date as well. Right. Site east of the A930, 400 metres south of Muirdrum Junction, Carlogie, Carnoustie. This is an application for a review of the decision taken by the Planning Authority in respect of the refusal of planning permission in principle for a care facility at the site east of the A930, 400 metres south of the Muirdrum Junction at Carlogie. Is the applicant or agent present?
We have Mrs. Clark, the applicant, sorry, the agent, Convener.
Thank you. We had the site visit on Monday. Do members require any further information?
No.
No. Right. Again, can I refer members to section 4 of the covering report on page 4, where we are advised that the applicant's agent has submitted new information which was not raised in the first instance to the planning authority when the application was determined. The reason for this new information is as detailed on page 279. Members are required to determine if the statutory requirements as detailed within section 4 have been met. Should we determine that the requirements have not been met, then we must not take those new matters into account. Can I just turn to Mr. Thompson, please, because I have a concern myself about this, that the letter that we have received from Millards is addressing issues that should have been addressed beforehand for items 2 and 3, and for item 4, it is addressing matters that are out with the application site. Therefore, I just want to check the legality of this, please.
Thank you, convener. The legislation is quite clear that a party to the proceedings is not to raise any matter which was not before the appointed person at the time the determination reviewed was made, unless that party can demonstrate that the matter could not have been raised before that time, or that it's not being raised before that time as a consequence of exceptional circumstances. But that doesn't prevent the committee taking into account the provisions of the development plan or any other material consideration. And I think my advice to the committee would be that the matter could have been raised before that time, and it would be a matter for the committee to determine whether or not the not submitting the information was a consequence of exceptional circumstances.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Duff, your views on the new information?
I don't know that I don't know that it changes anything for me, to be perfectly honest. I don't think it changes anything for me, to be honest.
Right. Councillor King?
Happy to go with the original report.
Councillor Miles?
Yes, the new information doesn't change anything as far as I'm concerned in my consideration of this report. I quite happily accept it, but it makes no difference to my opinion on where we are.
Right. And you've heard my opinion that I think it could have been provided beforehand, and as item 4 is irrelevant to the application being in the blue area, not the red, then I don't think that is relevant to the decision. Right, so can I ask members, Councillor Miles, what are your thoughts on this application, please?
Yes, well, it was helpful to have the site visit. It put everything in perspective. Certain parts of the refusal, I would question. The consideration of a flood risk, to my mind, is irrelevant and a red herring, because if that site was to flood, then half of Angus would be underwater. So I don't see that being relevant. What was relevant to my mind and picked up at the site visit was the proximity to the road and the speed traffic's going there. Accessibility would be a danger on a dangerous corner. So and obviously the people on the site would have to be let's say shielded from that, but the accessibility is a big problem for me at that blind corner, and I think it would be a folly to put installation like that there. So I would go with a refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Duff?
Yeah, I found myself a little bit unsure about this one. I agree with Councillor Miles on the flood risk. That seems like a kind of theoretical thing, which I think the applicant could have provided additional information at some point. I'm slightly. There's clearly a need for this facility. That's clear. The applicants made a point that it's better being in a rural area rather than in a conurbation. The road safety issue, I mean, I'm conscious we saw that on the site visit. However, we're not building a supermarket or a secondary school here. It's a facility with 1 or 2 staff. The amount of traffic movements would be very, very low. And I would be honest, I think I would go with overturning the original decision. I'm not sure if I've got any support, but I think the objections, I think the road safety would be valid if there was a large number of road movements. I think that the type of thing we're looking at is a very, very small number of traffic movements every day. And I think, as Councillor Miles has said, I don't think the flood risk is a one. I also come to the thing is the land is not being used for anything else. It's not in agricultural use. It's scrubland, and I recognise that we need a facility like this for the purpose that the applicant has applied for. They're currently using an unsatisfactory location and building. So I would be minded to accept the appeal here.
Thank you. Councillor King?
No, I think the officers have got this one 100% correct again. I agree with the fact that the flood risk is negligible. If you think about the depth of that den, it would need to come about 40 or 50 feet water to get onto that site. So half of Carnoustie would be flooded. However, I am concerned about the road. I am concerned that the applicant does not have ownership of the land beside the road in order to put in the necessary visibility displays. I'm also concerned with the fact that the site is traversed by high tension power cables, not the very large ones, but there are fairly substantial power cables cutting across the site, which would be difficult to build a house under without being relocated. So I think in this case, I'm totally in agreement with the officers to refuse planning permission in principle.
Thank you. And I also am concerned about it. Reading through it seemed disingenuous in places, saying that the social workers, excuse me, let me get my assistant out the way. The social workers were in support of the site. There was nothing said about them supporting the site. They simply supported new facilities. They referred to it being semi-rural and being in the countryside, and I got confused at times. But when I looked at what they were proposing, including a paddock, which I can't see how they gate in the application site. Having said that, I think the officer got it spot on. I don't think it is a safe location. I don't think that they can provide the visibility displays from the application site as is. I think that they need to go back to the officer and discuss it some more, but certainly in its present form, I am going to dismiss the appeal. So I have three members saying dismiss and one saying allow. Is there any more comment want to be made by anybody?
The only further comment I might make is support Councillor Duff's that it is a site that is little use for anything else, but it's still, I feel that on that site is the wrong application.
Right. So are members happy to agree to dismiss the appeal?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Vina, can I just confirm again for the minute whether we're refusing it on the basis of the reasons detailed in the handling report?
Yep.
Yes. As per the officer's recommendation.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is all the business on hand. I will see you gentlemen in about 40 minutes, 50 minutes. This meeting is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.